Jenny Millers was 29 years old, a waitress at Rosie's Diner, a tiny, unremarkable place wedged between a dusty hardware store and an old laundromat in a sleepy corner of rural Kansas. Her life followed a rhythm so steady, so unchanging, that it often felt like a song stuck on repeat. Every single day, without fail, she would rise before dawn, lace up her worn sneakers, and walk the 3 blocks to work through fog or frost. She'd tie the same faded blue apron around her waist and welcome the regulars, always with a smile. But behind that smile, a deep, aching loneliness she kept tucked away like a secret she'd long stopped trying to explain. She lived alone in a cramped one-room apartment above the town's only pharmacy. The walls were decorated with nothing but peeling wallpaper and a few family photographs, faded, yellowing reminders of a life long gone. Her father had died when she was just 15, leaving behind a silence in the house that no one could fill. 2 years later, her mother followed him, and Jenny found herself under the care of an aunt with creaky joints and a heart half tucked into retirement. That aunt had since moved to Arizona for her arthritis, and now all Jenny had were sporadic holiday phone calls and the occasional letter, often arriving late and smelling faintly of peppermint tea and desert air. Then came a Tuesday morning in early October, the kind of morning where the air bites a little, but the sky still clings to summer's softness. That's when Jenny noticed him. A boy. He couldn't have been more than 10 years old, and he was small, almost delicate in the way some children seem too careful, too aware. His eyes were impossibly watchful, absorbing everything around him while revealing absolutely nothing in return. He took a seat in the corner booth, the one furthest from the door, his 2 big backpacks slouched beside him like a faithful dog. And there was always a book open in front of him, no matter the day. That first day, he ordered only a glass of water. Jenny had approached him with her usual warmth, placing the glass down gently with a paper straw tucked beside it. "Here you go, sweetheart," she'd said. He'd looked up, barely, just enough to give her a nod so small it could have been missed entirely. That was it. The second day, same thing. The third, no change. The fourth, still just water. By the second week, Jenny couldn't help but notice the pattern. Like clockwork, he arrived at 7:15 a.m., a precise 45 minutes before the elementary school 3 blocks away rang its first bell. He'd settle in quietly, read his book, sip his water slowly, all while watching other patrons around him devour stacks of pancakes, steaming plates of scrambled eggs, crispy bacon, and buttery toast. At 7:55, without fail, he'd close his book, whisper a thank you if she was nearby, and vanish through the door, leaving behind nothing but a slight indentation in the leather seat. Then came the 15th day. Jenny, acting on a nudge from her heart rather than her head, brought him a plate of pancakes. "Oh, I'm sorry," she said quickly, as if flustered. "The kitchen made an extra. I'll just leave it here instead of throwing it away." The boy looked up, his eyes flickering with a mix of suspicion and something else, something deeper. Hunger, not just for food, but for comfort, for trust, for proof that the world could still be kind. "It's okay," Jenny added, her voice gentle. "Sometimes the cook gets the orders mixed up. Better to eat it than waste it, right?" And then she walked away, purposefully, carefully, giving him the space to choose. When she returned 10 minutes later, the plate was empty, completely clean. But the boy's eyes remained glued to his book, a deliberate avoidance that struck her like a punch to the chest. "Thank you," he whispered, barely audible, as she picked up the plate. And just like that, a ritual began, silent, sacred, and deeply human. Every morning, Jenny brought him a mistaken plate of food. Pancakes on Mondays, scrambled eggs and toast on Tuesdays, warm oatmeal with brown sugar on the frost-bitten Fridays. The boy never asked for any of it. He never made conversation beyond that quiet thank you. But he always ate. Every bite. Sometimes so quickly she worried he thought it might vanish if he didn't hurry. "Who's that kid you keep serving?" asked Harold, a retired postal worker who'd claimed the same stool every day since the Bush administration. "Never seen his parents. What's his deal?" Jenny shrugged. "Don't know, but he's hungry." Later in the kitchen, Kathy, the no-nonsense grill cook, cornered her. "You're feeding a stray," she said, not unkindly, but with the weariness of someone who had seen too many good intentions unravel. "You start giving handouts, they never learn gratitude. He'll disappear one day. They always do." Jenny didn't fight back. She simply offered a soft shrug. It's fine. I used to be that hungry too. It was the most personal thing she'd ever shared with anyone at Rosie's in 3 years. Let me know if you need this formatted differently or translated. The boy never told her his name, and Jenny never asked. Something about the way he moved, the cautious way he positioned himself near the door and kept one eye on the window, told her that asking questions would only drive him away. Instead, she focused on the little things, keeping his water glass filled, ensuring his food was warm, and maintaining a space that, for 40 minutes each morning, gave him a place to breathe. Sometimes, when the diner was quiet and his head was bent low in his book, she would let herself wonder, where did he come from? Did he live nearby? Was there anyone waiting for him at home? But then she'd stop herself. Because to Jenny, kindness wasn't supposed to come with conditions. It wasn't about answers or expectations. It was about showing up again and again, even when it didn't make sense. And something in him began to change. Subtle at first. The hunch in his shoulders softened. His eyes started meeting hers, a flicker, then a full second. That shift, that fragile eye contact, told her everything she needed to know. This mattered. By the 6th week, people noticed. Most said nothing, but some couldn't resist. Playing charity worker on company time, are we? One businessman sneered between bites of his toast. Kids these days expect handouts everywhere, muttered another. In my day, no one gave away free food just because someone looked sad. Jenny let the words wash over her. She'd learned that defending kindness only hardened those who mocked it. But not everyone was easy to ignore. Mark, the diner's manager, summoned her to his cramped office one morning. His brow glistened, his fingers tapping the desk like an impatient metronome. I've been watching you and that kid, he said. You can't give away free meals. Bad for business. Sets a precedent. Jenny twisted her apron nervously. I'll pay for it out of my tips. Mark stared. Your tips, Jenny? Those barely cover your rent. It's my choice, she said, her voice steady. Just one meal a day. I can manage. A beat passed. Then another. Mark sighed, rubbed his temples, and finally muttered, Fine, but if it affects your work or if he causes any trouble, it stops. Understand? She nodded, a wave of relief crashing through her. So she adjusted. Each morning she set aside a portion of her meager tips, money she might have used for a winter coat or the dentist appointment she kept rescheduling, and paid for the boys' breakfast. Then came a cold, bone-deep Thursday in November. The booth was empty. Jenny checked the door every few minutes. Her gut churned. Still, she prepared his plate, placing it at the usual booth like a candle lit in hope. Waste of food, Kathy muttered, shaking her head. The boy didn't show. Not that day. Not the next, or the one after. A week passed, then 10 days, and Jenny began to wonder, was Kathy right? Had he vanished like a stray who found another place to sleep? His absence left a hollow inside her she couldn't explain. She didn't even know his name, but his disappearance felt like losing something important. A quiet light blown out by the wind. Told you, Kathy said gently, almost kindly. They never stick around once the free ride ends. Jenny kept leaving the meals, even as the booth stayed empty. Then one day she saw someone taking photos of the booth, the untouched food. The next morning she understood why. A local Facebook group had posted the images with a mocking caption, Rosie's Diner now serving imaginary charity cases. The comments were cruel. Publicity stunt. Feeding strays just creates dependency. That waitress needs a reality check. If you'd like this formatted differently, e.g. paragraph breaks, block quotes, or translated into another language, let me know. Jenny had never cared much for the opinions of strangers, but these words, they pierced. Alone in her apartment that night, she opened a small wooden box. Inside, a photograph of her father, smiling gently in his Army medic uniform, looked back at her. Next to it, his leather journal, tattered and soft from use. She opened it to a page she knew by heart. There, in her father's handwriting, shared a half ration with a local boy today. Tears welled up in her eyes. No, she wasn't foolish. She wasn't weak. She was her father's daughter. And she'd do it all again, every single time. Jenny sat alone that night, the letter from Adam folded gently in her hands, her fingers brushing over each word as if they were made of silk. Her heart beat heavy in her chest, echoing the words that clung to her memory like leaves to wet pavement. Real heroes don't wear capes. They wear aprons too. What kind of world was this where a child had to find solace in a diner booth, surviving on pancakes and kindness while the rest of the world passed by, too busy, too skeptical, or too jaded to notice? Was it really so strange to care? To offer without questions, to give without expecting anything in return? It was almost funny how things had started, how one boy with guarded eyes and a thirst for something more than just water could unravel the entire rhythm of her quiet life. And now that boy, Adam, had a name, a story, and a father who had died serving a country that hadn't even known Jenny existed. Yet somehow a thread had formed between their lives, delicate but powerful, stretching across grief and silence and unspoken need. Jenny remembered Colonel Reeves standing before her, the crisp edges of his uniform so precise, the medals on his chest glinting in the sunlight that filtered through the diner windows. The hush that had fallen across the room still rang in her ears. She could still see the faces of those who had once doubted her, now softened, humbled by the truth of what her quiet actions had meant. How ironic. Those same people who once muttered about free handouts now stood tall in a moment of reverence, watching as soldiers saluted a waitress for serving breakfast. Could they feel the weight of it now? Could they understand? The plaque beneath Adam's booth had become something sacred, a silent reminder of what it meant to be seen, to be helped without judgment. Every time Jenny passed by, she paused, not just out of habit, but out of respect. That seat had cradled a child who was navigating storms most adults couldn't imagine. That booth had been a harbor, and she, just a waitress with tired eyes and thinning tips, had become his anchor without ever knowing it. Some days, Jenny found herself staring out the diner window, wondering what Adam was doing. Was he laughing now? Did he still curl up with a book in the mornings? Did he remember her pancakes with the extra swirl of butter, or the toast she always made sure was golden and not too dry? She hoped so. And when she closed her eyes at night, she imagined him sitting by a lake with his grandparents, fishing pole in hand, the sun warming his face, peace curling around him like a blanket. But in her quieter moments, Jenny remembered Adam's pain too. The kind that came with silence, with holding too much inside because the world might not understand. She knew that pain well. It was the kind that shadowed you in crowded rooms, that settled into your bones when the phone never rang, when holidays came and went, with only the ticking of the clock for company. She had known what it meant to ache with emptiness, to press through each day with a smile stitched to her face like armor. Maybe that's why she never asked Adam anything, because she knew what it felt like to want help without having to tell your story, to be given grace without being handed pity. Now, everything felt different. The diner was no longer just a place for coffee refills and late-night pie. It had become a haven, a symbol, a ripple of what kindness could do. Veterans passing through made a point to sit at Adam's booth, sometimes leaving behind challenge coins or handwritten notes of thanks. Families in need would quietly ask for Jenny, and she'd always find a way, be it an extra batch of pancakes or a hot chocolate on the house. Her co-workers, once skeptical or indifferent, had changed too. Kathy, who used to grumble about wasting food, now brought in extra muffins from home. Even Mark, the tight-lipped manager, surprised her one morning by offering a coffee to a weary-looking woman with a toddler in tow. No questions asked. Jenny often wondered what Sergeant James Thompson had imagined when he penned his final words. Did he envision a grand ceremony? A public thank you with flashing cameras? Probably not. More likely, he just hoped that someone would make sure his son was okay. And that was all Jenny had tried to do. Make sure a boy wasn't hungry, make sure he felt safe, even if just for 40 minutes each morning. Who would have thought that such a simple choice could echo so far? The letter from Adam stayed with her. She kept it in the same wooden box where her father's journal lay, tucked between the yellowed photographs and old birthday cards that marked the milestones of a life lived in quiet perseverance. And every time she read those lines again, "Thank you for not asking questions when I couldn't answer them," she felt something in her heart lift. Because that's what love looked like, wasn't it? That's what true compassion meant. You didn't need a reason. You just needed to show up. The booth, the plaque, the pancakes, all of it was just the beginning. Jenny realized that the real change had happened in the hearts of those who watched and learned. People began bringing in donations quietly: winter coats, backpacks with school supplies, gift cards slid across the counter with a wink and a whisper, for the next kid like Adam. Local schools even started a breakfast program, inspired by the story that had moved a town to action. And through it all, Jenny remained the same, soft-spoken, steady, offering warmth one plate at a time. One evening, as the sun dipped low and painted the sky in amber and rose, an older gentleman approached the counter. He wore a cap embroidered with Vietnam veteran, and his hands trembled slightly as he placed a $10 bill into the tip jar. "For Adam," he said simply, his voice rough with age and emotion. Jenny smiled, her chest swelling with something too big for words. All she could manage was, "Thank you." Because how do you even begin to express what it means to be a part of something so quietly powerful? It's easy to think the world is dark, that people have stopped caring, that cruelty always drowns out kindness. But Jenny had seen otherwise. She had watched the ripple of her small act turn into waves. She had watched people remember their better selves. And maybe, just maybe, that was how healing started. Not with grand gestures, but with a single plate of pancakes set down gently before a child who couldn't explain his pain. That plate had held more than food. It had held hope. It had said, "I see you. You matter. You're not alone." And so every morning, even on the slowest days, Jenny still prepared one extra plate, just in case. Because you never know when someone will walk through that door with hunger in their eyes and silence in their soul. And when they do, she'll be ready with warm food, a soft smile, and a heart wide open. Because that's who she is now. That's who she's always been. The quiet hero in a blue apron, reminding us all that love doesn't always shout. Sometimes it simply serves breakfast without asking questions.